Hello, this is Azrael. Thank you for tuning into my channel. And today we are going to be talking about Ovomancy, which is basically the divination using an egg. Quick notes that I'm going to have to repeat through this course in other videos is that there are hundreds of ways to do things. You've got to do what's right for you or what seems to work best for you. Understand that even though something that works best for you is the running theme through most of religious practices or spiritual practices, or even using spiritual tools for your practice, is that everything, even the method that works best for you, will still have its pros and cons. Now, other people read differently. I have some problems with some of these. It's like there's this one witch that I know of that likes to use 7. She'll break the egg and wait 7 hours to perform the divination. When you're getting an information from something, it doesn't matter if you're divining it now or 7 hours from now or a day from later. The thing is that the message you're going to get is going to be need an interpretation. When things need an interpretation, subjectivity often kicks in. So why wait 7 hours for something that you're going to need to interpret, and it might not even be clear? You need information now. Therefore, I prefer this method. I understand when you let something sit, it produces gases maybe, and you create situations like with an egg because it's organic and it's been broken and sitting at room temperature. There's all kinds of stuff, but I just think waiting 7 hours is silly. Another method is where you separate the yolk from the embryo. I mean, you separate the yolk from the white. Why? That can be interpreted too. You are literally cutting half of your answers in half. All your answers in half, you're cutting right in half, and you're just using the egg yolk instead of both. Again, that don't make sense to me. Now, understand that there is pre-existing conditions in everything. So the best way, in other words, one egg might have certain things wrong with it, and that's going to be there with or without your interpretation. But those things that are wrong with it might have an interpretation. So how do you lessen the possibility of self-fulfilling prophecies by only using one egg? So starting out, you should have multiple, at least 3 or more eggs to choose from, preferably at room temperature. The reason for this is that when the egg yolk and egg white are cold, the proteins kind of seize up and they're not as fluent. We're wanting things to be as fluent as possible. If you've been watching my videos, you'll understand that this form of any form of divination, you're going to try to eliminate anything that's going to try to impose it. You want this to happen on its own, kind of thing. Okay, so you're also not going to use cold water, because when you drop the egg in, the coldness will help keep the protein seized up and probably have an effect on the reading. But remember, this is subjective spirituality, so maybe that coldness was what you needed. Don't use hot water, because hot water cooks the gentle proteins, and guess what? It's going to seize up. So the best thing to do is have an egg at room temperature and warm water, and a vessel that can hold the water and hold the egg yolk without overflowing it. So you're going to have a vessel that you're going to put the water in. You want it warm, not hot, not cold, just above room temperature. And you're going to have multiple eggs to choose from at room temperature, at least 3. Now you're going to have those eggs, and you're going to have your client or you ask the question, and you're going to take this egg. And if this client, now I do this regardless with the egg, any egg that I use for divination. Eggs are cleansing. and they absorb the energies of what's problems you are that are affecting you, right? So if somebody put a curse on you and you're divining, have I been cursed? Well, the perfect thing is to take those cursed energies into the egg, and let's find out. But a quick now, don't if you're a male client, and you're dealing with a female client, you don't need to touch the body. A lot of if you're a female and vice versa, you don't have to touch the body too. But something interesting. Anyway, back to what I'm talking about. Um, you take the egg, and you don't have to, again, don't have to touch the body. Just kind of go like this, about an inch away, absorbing the energies and negativities, clockwise. Okay, mine looks like backwise, but you're gonna start from the head, and if you feel like a hot spot, focus on that hot spot, and try to kind of go basically around the whole body. Okay, this helps cleanse the person in the reading, and any of the information that's within their aura is kind of transposed or transferred into the egg, I meant to say. All right. Now that is done after the person has chosen the egg with the question in mind. Then you take the egg and you crack the whole thing, yolk and all, into the vessel. And then you're going to let it sit for a few minutes. Talk to your client. Do whatever you need to do. Okay? And it's going to look something like this. All right. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but this is what you want to want. You're going to want something to go straight down to the bottom of the glass, and you're going to want it to look nice and clear and pretty. This is the idea. Now, if this goes up, if the yolk floats up and the egg white stays down, or vice versa, if it floats, that means you want to get a different egg. And that might indicate that you need some cleansing rituals. Okay. Now, if it's been separated, one goes up, one goes down, or the egg yolk itself was broken, the egg yolk, the yellow part of the egg is broken in the reading, it usually means that the person is scatterbrained, that he or she has too many things going on, and she's feeling like he or she's being split apart. Okay. They can't focus, or they have too many things, or they can't decide. Now, they might not be able to decide, and that's why they're asking, and that won't appear in a reading like this good, right? But if the egg yolk is broken, uh, it's a good indication. Now, after you let it sit for a few minutes, probably about a good 10 minutes, let everything settle. You start looking into the egg, and this is where that thing I was talking about called pareidolia kicks in. You start seeing shapes or forms in the egg white or on the egg itself. Now, I can't sit there and break hundreds of eggs to make an instruction video of what to look for, so you're going to have to use your imagination, what I'm going to be talking about. If you see webbing in the egg white, or like a net, that definitely signifies that person is trapped in a situation. If you see a piece of the eggshell break into the mix, that would say that there is a strong obstacle that needs to be overcome, and perhaps energy work or blockbuster candles or something to help break away that energy might need to be employed. If you see that the egg yolk is cloudy, that means something similar to being, as they're being spread apart, with the egg yolk, it means that their mind is clouded. The situation is very unclear. And this would indicate, again, clearing path energies, depending on the situation. One might be physical energies that you need to get removed, such as the eggshell, and one might be spiritual, such as the cloudiness. You're going to find on the egg yolk, if you find a blood spot, well, that's a sign of witchcraft, that that person is being hexed. Maybe directly, maybe indirectly. What do I mean by indirectly? Well, there's a concept called the evil eye. This is one reason why people don't like being stared at, and why people don't like being pointed at. Believe it or not, old tradition. First of all, it just feels rude. Don't like to be singled out, and then or be a subject of someone's conversation unknowingly. So, but the thing is that when people are thinking bad thoughts of you and looking at you, they're focusing those bad thoughts on you. And even though this is low grade, witchcraft, what I mean is that you're sending negative energies that way, and you might not even know it. That's one of the reasons why most of the people who are victims of the evil eye are victims from their own family, because they get in arguments. And while they're arguing, they're giving each other nasty looks and thinking about bad things like, oh, you stupid ass, hope you fall down, get yourself hurt, blah, 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 right? That's a form of the evil eye. And it's sending negativity their way. It's a form of witchcraft. And most people do it and they don't know it because they're not, even the witch is doing it, right? The witch is just in an argument and looking at the person being very angry, and it's sending bad negative vibes their way. All right. That's unintentional. Now, sometimes people will master this and literally focus and intently do it to send you bad luck. That is intentional. If you see a red blood spot that is definitely in the form of a spider or a web, that's intentional witchcraft. Somebody knows what they're doing and they're sending shit your way. And don't necessarily have to be the evil eye. It could be an actual, some other form of curse. Anyway, if there is redness in the glass, like not like a pinkish red on the egg yolk or in the egg white, this would indicate that you have a spiritual spirit attached to you. Okay, a negative spirit. If the egg yolk is pinkish, you have that problem. Now, if it is red, blood red all the way, like you have blood footing in the egg, the water and the egg yolk and the egg white, well, this is a bad omen. Probably more than a curse. Uh, could be an omen of death. Believe it or not, in many cultures, you have blood, that much blood. It's a sign of it's a sign of death. And if it's not death, it means something's very, very bad. Something serious is going to happen. Clearing of negativity and protection work uh, would definitely be applied. Anyways, if you see veins, okay, little lines of blood or on the egg yolk, that could indicate certain directions of energy having that one would have a problem with. Now, if it's circled like the instead of a line, that means that it's coming from other directions. And that, for example, if you when you first notice the line, notice from which direction is it going, and you can probably tell where that is coming from. Especially if, say, you see a shape of something in the egg white, and then you see the bloodline on the yolk, and it's coming from that image. That means that problem is coming directly from that image. Okay, you understand that? You see a picture here, and you see the egg yolk. Say, right here, here's the egg yolk, and say there's a line going of blood going like, say, like this. You can draw a connection between the egg yolk and a symbol. That's to be interpreted a certain way. Now, if it's wiggly, it could be more of a spiritual problem. And if the line of blood actually is not really a line, but a circle, kind of like the line kind of curls in, that's definitely talking about the problem is coming from within that person. Okay, that they are the source of the problem happening, and it don't have to be matching to a symbol. Okay, and then of course notice any smells. If it smells like an egg, it smells like water, that's great. If it smells bad, again, that's showing problems with the whole situation, and something needs to be cleansed. Okay, and then of course, if when you're doing this on the body and you feel like certain locations are hotter, right? Maybe that could indicate a health problem coming from that area, or it could have been a symbolic gesture. Like, remember I was talking about left hand and right hand path a few minutes ago. Maybe that body part is a symbol of something. If it was at the top, maybe there's something wrong with their intellect or the way they're thinking. If it's coming in the chest, heart, maybe they're having emotional problems. Down further where things digest, like in the stomach, maybe are having a hard time processing certain information. Maybe they need to learn to accept. All that is a form of intuitive interpretation. But again, you're looking for patterns. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing. Um, see what you can see. Do you see a face? If you see a face inside the egg yolk or egg white, um, how defined is it? If it is if the less defined it is, it could be feminine in nature, and more defined, it could be masculine or aggressive. But depending if that face is very defined, basically, if it could it be more along the line of a spiritual influence or a spiritual matter. Maybe it's a feminine face and it's undefined. Maybe they're having problems letting go of the dead loved one, or masculine dead loved one, right? If it looks feminine or male, you have those energies. But if it's very very defined, it can mean that it's more in the present life. The more faded it is, it means it could be spiritual or in the past. Okay. Oh, I hope that makes sense there. Um, and again, any other symbols. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, um, it's probably real good when you to study up on archetypes and symbolism in your culture and what resonates with you, because those symbols, if you see a bird or uh, a cat or a dog inside the glass, well, those will be informations that need to be interpreted. And the best way to learn interpretations, well, starting out now, again, this is not an absolute. Dream journals, and I want to say this in other videos. Dream journals are great. Buy a dream journal, read up on what traditional meanings are, and then you can still branch off those traditional meanings. Just because the dream journal says uh, something about a certain bird or certain type of bird doesn't mean that's absolute, because you understand it is your reading or you're reading for somebody else. The symbols you see are deeply personal because it came from your brain, and they need to be interpreted both on multiple layers of interpretation. You have the cultural interpretation. What does your culture usually view? Like in Christian culture, snakes are bad, sometimes even evil. But in other cultures, they're good. They're symbols of healing and eternal youth, because they shed their skin and they look better. All right, so you have the culture to interpret from, and then you have your own personal relationship with that symbol. So there, it might be find that good balance, because again, especially if you're working with a customer, find out what their views are. If you see something, a cat, so what does that cat mean to you? Is it a positive thing? Oh no, I'm allergic to cats. I hate cats. Well, that symbol that you see in the cat might be something negative. So that meaning that you would see in, say, the dream journal, that's positive, might come as a negative. All right. So again, it's all deeply in tuned with you. Again, dream journals help you with symbolism, but of course, don't let somebody else's opinion or another culture's opinion put you in a little box. All right, because for example, I love dragons, but again, in certain cultures, dragons are beneficial and dragons are evil. And I would love dragons even if I was in a culture that thinks dragons are pure evil. And there you go. It's that simple. A small demonstration of what the egg yolk is. Oh, before I go, bubbles. Look for the bubbles. If you see little like air bubbles and they're at the top, air bubbles are beneficial. That means that there is positive energies at work to remove things on that person's behalf already. If it's bubbles that are, well, let's see if I can. Here's a bubble. The bubbles are at the top. Well, that usually means that there are angelic spirits at work. If the bubbles are closer to the egg yolk, those are more like, that's telling you that might not be angels, but it's your ancestors, your guardian angels, your past family that you may or may not know are working in the other side, working to help you as much as they can as well. So bubbles are beneficial, but where they are at indicates closer. If it's closest to the yolk, it indicates closest to the your client or you. At the top, it's usually something more angelic or spiritual. So there you go. All right. And you could also add more into this by sectioning off the cup. Like, for example, this is the face of my cup. It's a skull cup. So things closer to me, after I've cracked the egg through me, represents things the present. Now, this is not all the case because this is to be done as a whole, as a current reading right now in the present. Okay, but things on the other side of the glass are things in the possible distance. You have distant futures or things that have been that are done now that are not going to affect until later because it's away from me. But the closest to me represents me directly or the present directly. All right, and you can build on from there. Thank you for watching.